CXG believes in the visual art of storytelling, whether it's through film, video, live events, or podcasts just like this one. Our mission is to connect audiences through powerful, authentic stories that leave a lasting impact. CXG is proud to support the Litter Box because great stories deserve to be seen and heard. Learn more at cxgfilms.com.
Welcome to another episode of The Litter Box, a Detroit Tigers podcast, with your hosts, Bill Patterson and Chet West. Tiger fans, get out your broom. We had a sweep of the San Francisco Giants over the past 3 days. Some pretty good baseball played by your Tigers, some fairly middling vanilla baseball played by your Giants, which I was sort of expecting when I was looking over this roster for this upcoming series. Not terribly shocked that we swept them. I was expecting 2 out of 3 or hoping for 2 out of 3. Can never really expect a sweep. Are still somewhat rare throughout the season, but we managed to pull it out yesterday with some heroics. Bill, you lived in the Bay Area for a little bit. You have a little bit of an affinity for your San Francisco Giants, as I'm sure you visited old Pac Bell Park a few times back in the day. What are you seeing in this team and the differences, and what did you see in our Tigers this series?
Well, 3-game sweep. Do we get to use Jake Rogers' mustache as the broom?
We totally can. Yes. Let's tip him over, grab him by the ankles, and start sweeping with that broom of a stash.
That'd be a heavy broom.
It's a heavy broom.
Yeah. Living out in the Bay Area in San Francisco for a number of years, and also being a season ticket holder during the Barry Bonds heyday. The Giants would definitely be my number 2 team. I think you summarized the series very well when you asked me, is there anybody in this lineup you fear? And I immediately answered no. And I think that's really what's come to roost with this Giants team. The starting pitching's excellent. The Tigers were fortunate in only really seeing one of their excellent starting pitchers, and that was in Game 2. Aside from that, the bullpen was rendered obsolete for the fact that the Tigers got early leads, and then when Game 3, when they didn't, they were able to capitalize on that. So the Giants' strengths really come from pitching. Their bullpen's lights out. As a matter of fact, I would argue their bullpen's superior probably to that of the Tigers, although a bullpen's only as effective as when you get to utilize it, and they didn't get to utilize it. The other strength of the Giants has been defense, and one player in particular had an awful series in right field, and that would be Mike Yastrzemski. And again, I don't
looked a little lost out there.
Yeah, Game 2, he was all over the place. I don't know if the sun had a bad angle. I don't know if he just was given bad scouting reports, but he was 3 steps in the wrong direction just about every ball that was hit. So again, quick recap. Game 1, the Tigers won 3-1. Game 2, same result. And then Game 3 was an absolute thriller yesterday. Tigers came from down 3-0 to win 4-3. And I'd like to hear, your thoughts, and then I've got some more to add as well.
So I think the Giants got some decent starting pitching out of Birdsong in Game 1. Logan Webb disappointed me somewhat in Game 2. I didn't think he was going to be as gettable as he was, and I didn't get to watch much of yesterday's game. I'm going to rely on you for a little bit of coverage on that. I did take one thing away from this series. Kerry Carpenter might be in a little bit of a divot right now at the plate, if you want to hone in on anything somewhat negative. He and Trey Sweeney had a rough series, I would say. If I was a betting man, I don't think the San Francisco Giants are making the playoffs this year. A lot of people haven't picked to do it. They are in a tough division. So I'm not looking for them to be a postseason team at this point, not with that lineup. They have 3 guys batting below 180 coming into Game 1.
Yes, and if I can add real quick to Game 1, Birdsong is an excellent relief pitcher that's been moved to a starting role. And this was only his 2nd career start. He was lights out last year in long relief, probably the best long reliever in the National League. And overall, it was just a team win. Montero and the pen were serviceable. And the hitting wasn't really great for the Tigers, but it was clutch when it needed to be, hence a win. And, the Giants, this goes back to what we were talking about in the Guardian series. You're not going to win games when you score a run. And the Tigers pitching needs to really be highlighted in that fact for the Game 1 win. And then Game 2, Jack Flaherty, this is his 3rd strong outing. His fastball was great. He was even throwing the changeup with some effectiveness, which is outstanding. Wencel Perez, welcome back. Home run in his first at-bat, then promptly struck out twice. But hey, we'll take the home run to get us going. Torque did not have a great game in game two. He struck out 4 times, but that's going to happen. I still think that we're going to see Torque become a 3 outcome player, meaning a big hit,
Yeah. Yeah.
a walk, or a strikeout.
I think that's kind of how he's built at this point.
Yeah, I in a text thread that you and I are in with some of our loyal listeners, I used the comp that he's a poor man's Pete Alonso or a cheaper version of Pete Alonso, and I think that's pretty much what Torque's ceiling is, which I'll take all day long, especially at the price we're paying.
Well, he
him.
comps to him. Like if you look at Fangraph's comps to other players, Pete Alonso's like player number 2. So he's in there. I mean, they're definitely in that same conversation. And he had a nice line in game 1. He was 1 for 2 with 2 walks. I'll take that from Torque all day.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's a win for Torque.
So going on to game 3, you wanted me to kind of do a deep dive on it. 4-3 win. The Tigers were down 3-0. And then lo and behold, guess who's coming on now? I know you talked about who's sliding a little bit with Kerry Carpenter and, maybe mentioning some others, but Colt Keith has been red hot the last 6 games. He is currently riding a 5-game hit streak, and he knocks in 2 runs, hits a double, and then Jahan essentially takes care of the rest, which Jahan, we'll talk about the positives.
Yeah.
Jahan won the game, technically.
Technically,
Torres
yeah.
did a great job. Again, he just gets on base. When he's on there, we'll talk about his lack of wheels, and Joey Cora's got to stop sending him because he is causing outs on the base paths. I do want to bring this up. I know he's the hero, and I know today's an off day for the Tigers. Circling back, it's the away team's option to decide if it's a day game or if it's a travel day, and the Giants elected to get out of Dodge, which is why we had the 12-10 start. So sorry about that. You can blame it on the Giants. With that, Jahan has really been suspect in outfield, and I think he will be a big leaguer on a regular
Eventually.
basis.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be odd man out as players get healthier, and I don't think that a little more seasoning or time in Toledo is really going to be that detrimental to him. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, he fits a place on the roster right now because Parker Meadows basically isn't there. I think once Parker Meadows comes back, Jahan goes back down. Now, you could say that about a couple of guys. I don't really see Wensil Perez going down because he's a good fill-in guy in the late innings either way. In the outfield, I don't see any other player on this roster being sacrificed when Meadows comes back. And Meadows is playing minor league ball now. He's down there getting his reps in at AAA. So we're going to see him eventually. And when we do, I think Jahan may be the odd man out on this whole thing. I'm sure there's probably a candidate or 2 others that they could pick from. I don't think Sweeney's going to go down at this point. I think he's played well enough to stick around. And so you're down to basically Jahan. One other thing I wanted to say, I said Carpenter was in a little divot. He did have 2 hits in this series. The strikeouts are a little more of a concern. And I got to throw a bouquet to your guy, Jack Flaherty. He had another good game. Good game.
My guy.
Yeah.
Jack Flaherty, again, goes as the fastball goes. That's something to watch all season. The fact that he was throwing, it's not a secondary pitch, it'd be more like a tertiary pitch, that changeup, but he had location with it and looked really, really solid Tuesday night. So
Yeah.
I would like to think good Jack Flaherty's back, and we'll go from there.
I'll take good Jack Flaherty.
Oh, we will.
need good Jack Flaherty because in looking at Job's line, and you can fill a little more in on this for me, but it looks like he was giving up some hits. Looks like guys were getting on base, and he was walking a couple guys. I mean, it was kind of close to a typical Job start, but a little shorter. Did he get in some trouble there yesterday?
Yeah, he was in trouble the entire game.
Okay.
Innings 2, 3, 4, and 5. The first man that he faced was on base, and trouble continued from there. What was impressive is he found his way out of the trouble, with the exception of, allowing 3 runs.
Yeah.
But given that the Tigers allowed 5 runs in a 3-game series to a team that I somewhat disagree with you on, I do think they'll be able to get another bat in there. The Giants are one of the wealthier teams. I know they play in a rough division, but I think the Diamondbacks are going to fade, and I think it's going to be tough. It all depends on if the Braves right the ship in time, but I mean, the season's 32% done, Chet.
Yeah.
We're getting to the point where teams are what they are, and I know the Braves had a horrible start. Sometimes there's only so much you can do to overcome that, and their
Exactly.
division's not a pushover either. But yeah, I would say it's a coin flip on the Giants making the playoffs. But I think any Giant fan would be pleasantly surprised to see them make the playoffs,
Okay.
given the division
And
what they're facing.
I was a little rough on Logan Webb. The guy did it. He did pitch a pretty good game. He let us get to him a little bit. He gave up the dinger, but he did have 10 Ks, which seems to be a little trendy for us right now. Our strikeout numbers seem to be up a bit.
That is my biggest concern with this team right now. And I have one other thought for you, and that is that Brennan Hanafy is the long relief or innings eater relief pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
He happens to have the most negative WAR on the team as well. Now, part of that could be by design in terms of his role and what he's being asked to do, but the lack of a true, trying to think, swing and miss relief pitcher, save Will Vest. I think the Tigers' number one priority going into the trade deadline is to try to get another swing and miss guy.
Yeah,
for the pen.
Somebody for the pen.
Yeah. And my other question to you is, or just question in general is, at what point does he pitch too many innings? Is he overutilized? And I don't know that, only
Sure.
AJ Hinch and the pitching coach and staff will know that, but he's being utilized a lot.
His underlying metrics are very poor at this point.
And if it's not him, or if he becomes overutilized, who fulfills that role? And those are just some of my thoughts. I have a story, though, if we can circle back to the Giants.
Please, yes.
All right, so this Tigers team is on an amazing, amazing run. They currently, since last August 10th, have a record of 67-33 with a 670 win percentage, which is the best in Major League Baseball. Number 2 is the Dodgers, 3 is the Mets, 4 is the Phillies. You think about that, we're punching well above our payroll weight. We're punching well above our weight. I want to say that's significant is this. On August 10th of 2024, so last season, the Tigers were headed for another losing season. It would have been their 8th in a row, and it would have been their 10th, a decade of non-playoffs. They were 55-63, 10 games out of the third wild card spot, and they had 5 other teams that they were staring up to. They just traded Jack Flaherty at the July trade deadline to the Los Angeles Dodgers, and their lineup in a 3-1 loss that day to the San Francisco Giants. This is my point, what a difference, a year makes.
Yeah.
You're going to love this first 3. You had Akil Baddoo batting leadoff. He was hitting 125 at the time.
Okay.
Gio Urshela, that's a name for you, at cleanup.
Yeah.
He had a 605 OPS.
I remember him being somewhat serviceable at times for us, though.
This name completely eluded me. Bly Madras was playing first
Bly
base
Madras.
batting 5th. The
young kid we brought up from, okay.
4 hitters all finished the game hitting under 200. Fangraphs at that point had the Tigers playoff odds at 2%, which seemed generous.
That does seem generous, actually.
August 11th, the day before my birthday, Tigers beat the Giants 5-4. Then, on August 15th, Javier Baez hit a 2-run, 2-out home run in the bottom of the 8th on the Mariners, lifting them to a 2-1 victory. The Tigers then went on an improbable 31-13 run to finish the season at 86-76 and capture the wild card. One more win than Seattle, before eventually being eliminated by the Guardians in the American League Division Series. So the question is, we know the story, we're living it in real time. Why has this happened to a team that was below 500, dormant, isn't a big spender? I mean, we're talking
they had some good
third
fortune.
payroll.
I mean, they had a team completely melt down in the Minnesota Twins down the stretch, for one thing.
Well, I also have some metrics on this, but keep going.
Okay. Secondarily, when did Javi, we're going to call him Javi for last season, when did he go on the IL for the season?
Pretty much immediately after that 2-run
Immediately after that dinger, right? I seem to remember him hitting a dinger and seeing it in the post game, because I certainly wasn't watching many games at that point. Don't rip me for my fandom, but they were an awful team up to that juncture. Nobody thought they were going anywhere. And Javi ripped a home run. I'm like, oh, Javi did something, and then he went on the IL, and I'm like, of course he's on the IL. That could have been a catalyst. That might have. Everybody thought that was like, we got Javi out of the lineup. Now we're winning ball games. What a difference a year makes. Right? But go on with the rest of your factoids there.
All right. Tarek Skubal is 10-2 in that time
Yep.
frame with a 2.22
Still dominant.
ERA. Hold on, it gets even better. 49 strikeouts and just 14 walks. We know he won the 2024 AL Cy Young and won the Triple Crown of that, meaning he had the most wins, ERAs, and strikeouts. This season, Skubal boasts a strikeout to walk ratio of 92-7.
Yeah.
So he is striking out 13 batters for every walk he has, which is far and away the most ever for a qualified pitcher. It's almost 2 over Phil
Ever
Hughes.
since Skubal was a prospect, this was supposed to be his calling card, was his strikeout to walk ratio. He just didn't walk guys. And people loved it, and he struck guys out. So he's always had this since he was in the minors.
And again, it goes back to Sunday's performance and how surprising it was. That was his first complete game shutout.
Yeah.
I'm sure you read the same article I did. It was published by many different outlets that Skubal would like to start getting the rock or the ball and finishing games with that.
I'm fine with that. I don't want him to throw his arm off. I mean, I know we're supposed to cheer for these guys to throw complete games these days and whatnot. I just don't want him overused. We need him for a full season. It's a long stretch. So I'm good with it. If he's good with it, if he feels strong and healthy, go for it. Fine. But let's not let him throw his arm off.
Wow, you're a wet blanket.
I can't believe I know. I can't believe I just said all that. I honestly can't believe it. Normally, I'm like, why is this guy only going 5 innings? And now I'm sitting here talking about limiting Skubal's complete game shutouts. It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, Chet's cornflakes got soggy this morning, everybody.
I know. It's awful. I'm back. I want him to throw complete games every time out. Give him 280 innings for the season.
He only threw 102 miles an hour on his
I couldn't believe that.
final pitch on Sunday. But anyhow, which is the highest in the family.
He also said if that wasn't a strike, he wasn't sure what he was going to do for the next pitch.
I don't think he had anything left. Point number 2, the bullpen ERA right now leads the majors since that August 11th date, 2.78. It's almost half of what it was previous to that. It was 4.16. Currently, they're 7th in the majors, 3.31. We've talked about the bullpen. We've talked about they probably need another swing and miss guy. I think Will Vest is easily the best pitcher in that pen. I love the addition of Canley.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I think we've seen some issues here and there. And I think one thing that we haven't really highlighted enough on, now that it is official and that he is undergoing shoulder surgery, is that we wondered what happened to Jason Foley. And now we know that it was an injury. And, again, we never want these guys to get injured. And when they do, Godspeed, we want them back as quickly as possible. He is one that could be a key catalyst. We won't see him until next year, this time at the earliest, but it could be awesome if he does return to current form. And quite frankly, we're seeing so many pitchers undergo various surgeries, Tommy John being one of them, and coming back stronger. And number 3, the OPS is 626. It ranks top 10 in the majors. It was nothing like that, previous to August 10th of last year. And the key thing is they're getting key contributions in slugging. And so I think a lot of that's the torque factor. I think some of it's the carp factor. And then Dylan Dingler's helped tremendously with that. Point number 4, Javier Baez is hitting 280, 315, 459 in 2025. That being said, we know it's not going to continue. There will be a regression to the norm. He still chases.
Javier doesn't tend to have divots. Javier tends to have tranches.
Craters.
Of
the Mariana Trench in the Pacific Ocean.
And this has been a factor his whole career. This is not we're not talking about modern day Javier. We're talking about Javi over the last 8 years. Like in 9 years, this is just what we'll expect at some point.
Hey, Tiger fans. You know what's more frustrating than a bases-loaded double play? When your small business is striking out with technology problems. That's why our good buddy, Brett Danis, created Summit Tech Partners. Brett's a Michigan guy through and through and a lifelong Tigers fan. And Summit provides the perfect relief pitcher for your IT needs. While their services throw you generic fastballs, Brett's team will scout your business and develop a customized game plan specifically for your small business.
While you're keeping track of ERA and RBIs, Brett's team will handle your IT infrastructure. His team will monitor your systems like a hawk-eyed umpire, catching problems before they become major league disasters. Summit has a full roster of IT services that'll keep your business safe and running smoothly, so you can spend less time troubleshooting and more time watching torque bombs.
Visit homerun.support today for your free consultation.
Summit Tech Partners, where your small business is always the MVP.
And then
So I like the take on the pen. And one thing about bullpens is it's like catching lightning in a bottle a lot of the time. You just don't really know what you're going to get year to year from your bullpen.
no, you don't. And that's why it's always a moving target. And managing in today's era would be far more difficult than, say, the John McGraw or Yogi Berra era, where you had a starter go 7-8 innings and then, you'd bring in 2 relief pitchers. Heck, even the 84 Tigers. I mean, most of the time it was either, Morris, Petrie, Milt Wilcox going a good length, 6 2/3 to 8 innings coming in for an inning. Guillermo Hernandez coming in to close it. And that was kind of lights out. That's what happened. Now you think about it. I mean, my jaw was on the floor yesterday's game when they brought in a lefty to face Mike Yastrzemski, who had done next to nothing in this series. And I'm thinking, just leave the pitcher in, leave Hannafy in. I mean, what's the worst he can do on this? And yet they didn't. Last point on this is just the amazing resurgence that we've gotten from Casey Mize, and the fact that Jackson Jobe technically could be in Toledo right now, and the fact that he's eating this many innings with a
Sure. I'm happy with what we're getting out of Jobe. Even with yesterday's little blip of sorts, he wasn't bad. It seems like guys get on base with him a little more than maybe the rest of the staff. And he's young. I mean, he's in his first year. His K rates aren't that high. His walk rates are a little over what you'd want, but for a young pitcher in his first year, it's sort of expected. So I'm fine with what Jobe's been doing. He's managing the games. He's kind of holding down that 4th or 5th spot in the rotation for us.
One interesting point on yesterday was the first time Rogers caught for him this season, and I don't know that they were as seamless as they could have been. I didn't get to watch the game.
Well, that might have something to do with it.
But that's just something to put in your back folder for now.
That could have something to do with it.
So those are kind of my thoughts, kind of going from last year to this year, what the differences are. We're headed into an off day tomorrow, which is well needed. Everybody needs some rest.
This schedule's been an absolute grind.
Yeah. And, the good news is we have a 3-game set against the Diamondbacks, but the National League West is done. The Cardinals are done, and the Brewers are done. So, yes, we still have to face the National League East. Yes, we still have to face the Cubs, who are just raking.
Yeah.
But then again, they just played the Rockies, so I'm going to hold that with a grain of salt. But
sort of like playing Major League Baseball at this point.
Sort of. It's kind of like playing a 5th grade Little League team. My last thought, Matt Vierling, we barely got to know you. 4 games up, and he's already back down. I don't mean to be hot take-ish on this. I don't think we're going to see much of Matt Vierling this season.
Seems like something.
Why.
So why don't you break down why he was just sent back to the
same injury from before?
The IL. And so it's going to be a nagging thing, right?
It's his shoulder, and I don't have
I just saw that he was back on the IL, and I'm like, he had to have re-injured something. There's no way he's got a new injury that quickly. He barely played.
And it's one of those, he wasn't all that great either when he was up, but it was such a small sample size. I don't want to count on him. And I don't want this pod to count on him, because I don't think he's going to be the answer.
This pod will not count on him. I can guarantee you. You already got my take on him. He's like a middling outfielder and always has been. Until further proof shows itself. I'm not jumping on the Matt Vierling bandwagon. Yeah. Despite his excellent WAR last season, I think he had a really good season for us for what he normally does. Until proven otherwise, he is a average outfielder, in my opinion. Don't hate me, Matt Vierling. Prove me wrong.
But it's not that. I mean, Z-Mac does the exact same thing.
In a lot of ways, yeah. He's kind of had that up and down little bit of a roller coaster of a career so far in the majors.
Well, meaning that he can play all 3 outfield positions. He can play multiple
You're
positions.
You're saying he's more of a utility-ish than...
Yeah, and that's what I've always thought of Vierling as. He just happened to
Sure.
get
He does
hot.
fill a lot of spots on the field, which is great. That's his, that's his
And
special
we
power
kept saying
there.
that McKinstry can always string together like 30 good days. It was kind of our preseason prediction. If you look at Vierling's career, it's also peaks and troughs. And I think we just happen to be in a huge peak. So with that, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the
Yeah.
American
So I'm
League
going to lead
Central.
this off with a question, Bill. In
Okay.
the AL Central, who do you think is for real right now so far? We are 2 months into the season. April and May are gone. We are supposed to start looking at these teams as, we kind of starting to see what we get. We're starting to realize what their real persona will be for the rest of the season, what we really have on the field. Take a look at the teams in this AL Central. Who's for real, who isn't? I'll start with the White Sox. They are trash. Let's move on. They're still trash. They're 18-38. They are 18 and a half games out of first place right now, going into June. Now, never say never. Our Tigers did some amazing things last year.
No, I can't.
No, not for the White Sox this season. Okay.
No.
They have some great young pitching coming through. I'll give them that. They have some great young players that are starting to come through, but they're still trying to put it together. They're like us 2 seasons ago or something. I don't know, but they're just not there yet. They're not there yet.
They were the all-time worst team last year, with
Sure.
reason.
Yeah.
It wasn't like
Yeah.
the 2003 Tigers that were just bad because everybody just happened to be bad that year.
Negative 48 run differential. That's not going to get you very
No.
far. They are 6-23 away from
The friendly confines.
of guaranteed rate field. I always have to try to think of what the hell that ballpark's called. They change the name on it like every 2 years or so. Anyhow.
Well, can I answer your question?
They're 12-15 at home, but they're 6-23 away. Yeah, go ahead.
The Twins. But go ahead.
Well, hang on. So the Royals, where do you see the Royals? Are they for real? Are they underperforming, overperforming? Where are they at? They are currently sitting in 4th place, 7 games back. They have an 18-11 home record and a 12-16 away record. So they're a little more even. They've been playing some pretty decent baseball. They have one of the better pitchers in the majors right now in Bubic. What do we think about Kansas City? We're about to play them.
And speaking of, yesterday you and I were talking that we might get a Scooble Bubic matchup on Saturday.
Yeah.
Guess what? They just switched it to Michael Waka Waka Waka.
Talk about completely blowing up your ratings.
Well,
I mean, that would have been a much better matchup for Scooble Bubic.
I was kind of ragging on FS1 for picking Phillies Brewers, and now
maybe they knew something. Maybe they
did the right thing.
They're like, this is never going to happen.
We've got the Royals this weekend.
Yeah.
We swept the Royals 4-0 the first time around the season.
Yeah.
This one's in Kansas City. The pitching matchups are Mize versus Lugo. I just mentioned Scooble versus Michael Waka. Let me check on what the third matchup is, but I guarantee it's going to be Montero versus Bubic. So that is essentially Kansas City's way of saying that they are hoping to get 2 out of 3. They don't even think they can sweep the Tigers, and that their best chance is to send Bubic against Montero.
That's fine. I get that.
So I think the Royals go is Savi Perez goes in Jr. Bobby Witt Jr. goes. And unlike the Tigers, they're not getting key contributions from as many players. The bullpen's not nearly as solid as it was a year ago. And they remind me a little bit of the Tigers in the fact that Bubic is like this elite ace, but they don't remind me of the Tigers because their star power happens to be with Perez and Jr. And if those two guys aren't having 3 for 4 or 4 for 4 type days,
they become a very beatable team.
Yeah. So I would put them well ahead of the White Sox.
Yeah.
That being said, unless they do something significant, which is not in Kansas City's nature, they are dictionary definition of a small market team. They usually home grow their talent, develop it, which has worked for them. I mean, they have the most recent World Series of any American League Central team and have been a formidable opponent. That being said, I think they could make the playoffs, is maybe the third wild card, maybe the second wild card. I'd say that's the ceiling for this team. I just think the division's too tough this year. If they played in, say, the National League Central, they'd probably be chasing the Cubs pretty well.
I think you're probably right there. If it's a different division, the Royals probably are playing up at the top of the standings there in that division. Now we'll go to the Twins. Twins and Guardians are currently tied for second place in our division. The Twins have a very good home record. They are 18-8 at home right now, that's insane to me. They are 12-17 away. They have, I think, of all the teams in our division that underperform on a regular basis, the Twins have got to be the one. I can't believe they're not the first place team in this division. When you go through, they have a pretty good starting rotation. You've got Pablo Lopez, you've got Joe Ryan, you've got Bailey Ober, you've got guys who are, Chris Paddock, veteran, still very serviceable starter. I can't believe we don't get more. You got Joan Duran, who's probably one of the most dominant back-end relievers in the game. You've got a guy like Jorge Alcala, who's come on this year and done a pretty good job. But then in the lineup, you've got Larnach, you've got Royce Lewis, Carlos Correa, when healthy, Royce Lewis, sorry, Carlos Correa. I'm looking at all these guys and I'm wondering, how are they not in first place? Like, what has happened with this team and how are they not doing better?
They had a really, really slow start.
They had a very slow start.
3 weeks of the season were
then they got hotter
miserable.
Than hot. They won
they've been the hottest
13
team
in
this
a
year.
row or something.
Yeah.
I mean,
in terms of win streaks.
Can't seem to get, I don't know. I can't seem to wrap my head around it. I worry about them going down the stretch, though.
I do too.
I have a feeling they are going to be a pest down the stretch for us. I think they could do to us this season what we did to them last season. We'll put it that way to some degree.
But they did it to themselves last season. Not only did the Tigers get hot,
I know.
the Twins. So I still wonder about their psyche. So if I can give you a couple points, the Royals have a -5 run differential right now. They're 5-5 in their last 10.
Yeah.
The Twins, after that amazing win streak, are now 5.
It's 26.
Plus 26, but they're 5-5 as well.
Yeah.
I think we're in absolute agreement that they're the team to fear. The only thing I'll say to that is I don't understand how Stephen Vogt and the Guardians are so in the Tigers' heads.
Well, they've got to be frustrated right now, too, though. Like my point, I was going to get to the Guardians next, and my point of the Guardians, we can jump to them. I mean, I think we've beat the Twins up here. Like, you should be doing better, Twins. Why aren't you doing better? Do better.
And they're a formidable opponent.
They're formidable. I'm afraid of the Twins for the rest of the season. I'm on record for that. I think that's going to be a very challenging series for the rest of the year for us.
Their 1-7 in their lineup is easily the best in the American League Central.
Yeah. The Guardians should not be challenging, but are for us for one reason or the other. They're from a talent perspective, I think they sit down more near the Royals. Where if Jose Ramirez is not on, if Kwan is not on,
yes,
you've got a team that's extremely beatable. Now, we could say that about a lot of teams. I mean, if your star players aren't on, you're beatable. But at the same time, they don't quite have the metrics. They have a -17 run differential. They have to be going crazy right now because they are now 6 games back from first. They just took 3 out of 4 from us at Detroit, and then they turn around and have to play the Dodgers. And the Dodgers basically crushed them all week. So it's got to be absolutely mind-boggling for that team right now to come off of that series against us. Maybe the Scooble game got in their head. Maybe it set them off with bad juju. I don't know. But that's a team I kind of see the Guardians fading. I don't think they did enough in the offseason. And I see them sort of fading out of the conversation down into where the Royals are right now at the bottom, maybe 3rd, 4th place by the end of the season. I could see the Royals leapfrogging them to 3rd place eventually.
I couldn't agree with you more on that. I think those are going to be the 3rd, 4th place teams, and I do think the Royals' ceiling is higher than that of the Guardians. The Guardians have always relied on young arms, and it just doesn't seem that the arms are ready.
Don't quite have them
this season.
Yeah.
And I will say this, though, much has been made of it. Jeff Passan, after the first 6 games of the season, was making a lot of fun of the American League Central because I think every team was 2-4 and saying how bad it was.
Yeah.
And since that
Way to go, Jeff.
they've been the, he was doing he's a great reporter. He was doing what he should do.
He is.
And that wasn't the point. I mean, it's always, you can take metrics at any point in time and skew them to your liking or disliking. The interesting part is he is course corrected because he is a great reporter and said that this is now outside of the National League West, the most competitive. He said it's the National League West is the best division in baseball. He said this is the most competitive division in baseball and one where every game not involving the White Sox, but between the other 4 teams is must-watch baseball for those that are baseball fans. And he said you can't say that because the Dodgers still have a distinct edge over the Diamondbacks. They still have a distinct edge over and the Padres, and I think they're in their head. The Giants and Dodgers are, the first 2 West Coast teams, longtime rivals. And for whatever reason, the Giants hold their own a little bit more against the Dodgers historically. Anyway, what else would you like to share on the American League Central? I appreciated your
That's
commentary.
it. That's all I've got for right now. I think my biggest point there is we just got kind of worked over by the Guardians, sans the Scooble start. But I think my bigger worries have to do with the Twins and this upcoming series, the Royals. Those right now are kind of my concerns going forward. I'm going to be focusing on those 2 teams and watching them and their ascendancy or regression, whatever happens. But I wanted to kind of call out the Guardians have to be extremely frustrated at this point because I would have thought that they would have been really close to nabbing first place from us after that 4-game set this past weekend, but they went the complete other direction and it ended up being a non-factor for them. One other thing I wanted to call out, there's a guy by the name of James Shiano who had a great Twitter thread this past week of all the, a third of the season's over. Here's some interesting stats type of a thing. James Shiano does a lot of fantasy baseball stuff. He says he had one whole post on the Tigers. It says Tigers best record in AL. Tarek Skubal, best pitcher in MLB by far. Spencer Torkelson, 13 home runs, real breakout. Riley Green, Kerry Carpenter, dogs. Reese Olson, crafty as hell, 2.96 ERA. Reese Olson kind of going, we don't talk about him enough other than when he has a decent start, of course, but he has been a stalwart in that starting rotation, and I almost see him as more of our 2 than Flaherty, but I'm not taking it away from Flaherty now. It's probably,
Can I just interject real quick?
Yeah.
Does it matter after having a true ace who really 2 through 5 is?
I mean, are you going to tell me that having 2 ace-like pitchers at the top of your rotation isn't fantastic? Most World Series teams do end up having 2 guys who are pretty lights out.
Yeah, but
right?
Think about the 2014 Tigers, or was it the 2012 Tigers that had Verlander?
True. Verlander,
Scherzer. So they had 3 true aces. And the Orioles came in and took care of business in the divisional round. And that was that.
It's funny you bring up the Orioles. So at the end of this, he says Javi Baez, 800 OPS center fielder, getting big contributions from all over a very serious squad. Then he goes down 2 posts later. Just to rub the salt in the wounds. Orioles suck. Huge expectations. 19-34, last place AL East, 2 games better than the White Sox. Who would have predicted that at this point? But then he goes on, and here's going back to the rotation conversation. Rotation is awful. Charlie Morton, 7.09 ERA. Zach Eflin, 5.4 ERA. Dean Kramer, 5.02 ERA. Cade Povich, 4.56 ERA. So, off-season, catastrophe. Manager Brendan Hyde fired. Complete disaster is his write-up on the Orioles. So if you had thought at this point of the season we would get a write-up from a national media guy, I mean, James Shiano, he's more of a fantasy baseball-centric type, that we were going to get a write-up about the Tigers being best team in the AL and the Orioles sucking and being the worst and a complete disaster, I would have said the chances of that happening were about 2%. No way.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And I do want to give a shout out to ESPN's David Schoenfield for doing some of the heavy lifting on some of the research I did today. So,
good job, David. Way to go, David. Yeah, we just get all our stuff from everywhere else anyways. So,
I mean, that's kind of how the internet works.
It is.
So Kansas City, the weather looks gorgeous, sunny, high of 76 for Friday.
We're going to have to do a food thing, right?
I already have it.
Oh, God.
Sunday,
we got to.
83 degrees as well. So no
nice
clouds.
Weather.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're going to have.
I like Kauffman Stadium. I'm a fan.
A big fan.
I like watching games that are Kauffman. I don't know why. It's smaller, but it has some history. I like games that are Kauffman. It's got a unique
shape to it. And
yeah, it totally does.
The acoustics are really good, meaning it gets loud when it needs to.
It's one of my favorite places to watch away games.
Yeah. I absolutely, completely, and totally love it as far as away game situations go. So I think the Tigers are going to take the first 2, and I think they're going to lose on Sunday.
Okay. Interesting.
And I think that's okay because they've got a 4-game set next week against the White Sox.
So I think when I look at this, you look at, is Montero going to be our Sunday pitcher?
Yeah.
I think we're he had a great start, by the way. We glossed clean over that. He had a great start. He did a really good job in that game the other day. And his sweeper or whatever was working for him. I will go, an away series, I tend to just say, just get the 2 and get out. I think we take that for granted. I think we get the Scooble game and we lose the other 2.
Okay.
I'm going to be a little Debbie Downer here, but man, how long can this? I mean, we just swept the Giants.
All right, a 4-pack at Tank 7 from Boulevard Brewing in Kansas City.
A 4-pack at Tank 7. I'm going to be traveling all over the country trying to find this beer, probably. I don't even know if I can find that here. We'll see.
All right. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, sponsors. And thank you, Tigers, for giving us so much good content to talk about.